Today, we're going to do a second part in our series on looking heavenward towards God. And so I titled it, To Whom Can We Compare God? Looking heavenward. To whom can we compare God? And this is a tough one. Last week, we looked at how great our God it was and how great our God is, the greatness of God. And that really, when you think about it, that should be enough for us to trust in Him for everything in our lives. Because we see His greatness and how amazing He is and how much He's in control. But I know we're human beings. And I know that over the past week, I know for sure that things have been thrown at you in many ways, in many formats, because every week, every day, things are thrown at us to throw us off kilter or to help us lose focus on what's really important. You know, it's been tough probably for many of us that we go through challenges, we go through difficulties, and we can take our focus away from what's above and start focusing again on the problems that seems to surround us. And we forget what's really important. You know, I don't know if you're like me, but I can forget things. Even after one day, even after a few minutes, I can forget things. We had some people show up here who, you know, I've never met personally, people in the church, and I warned them. I said, I will probably forget your name within 10 minutes. And I think it lasted about 5 minutes, and I had forgotten names. So that just shows you how great my memory is. So when we go through challenges, when we go through difficulties, when we face things, whether they're good or bad, we can take our focus from what's important, what's really above us, and we can lose sight of that and focus on the things that are around us. So today, last week you looked at the greatness of God, and in our series, we're going to do probably 6 or 7 weeks. This week, we're going to focus on, to whom can we compare God? You know, we're going to try and compare God today to, you know, really, when you think about it, there's nothing we can compare God to. God is God, and then there's everything else. We can't compare God to anything. We can't give Him, there's nothing that even comes close to comparing anything to God. But we compare everything, don't we, in our lives? Everything we compare it. You know, we are driving down the road and we will compare our car, whether it's a sport utility vehicle, whether it's a van, whether it's a truck, whether it's a sedan, whatever our car may be, I guarantee you that we will compare our car to anything we pass on the road. Yesterday was a great time, and Lisa got a fantastic cake, a big flat rectangular cake with whipped cream topping and yellow topping and a graduation hat. It was really beautiful. And you know what we did? We compared that cake to Melissa Christensen's pound cake. We compare pretty much every meal we eat with every other meal that we've eaten. I don't know if you're a campus student or a high school student, I can almost guarantee you compare your scores, your grades at school compared to your other classmates. We compare everything. So what do we compare to God? Let's take a look at the first slide, Shane, in Isaiah chapter 40. It says, to whom will we compare me? This is God speaking. Or who is my equal, says the Holy One. Lift your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of His great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. You know, personally, I can't understand this. I can't remember names. I lose track of names. My wife and I have this kind of unspoken rule in our relationship, where if we go to an event or a party, and my wife can't remember their name, I remember the name of someone, I will always say, yeah, hello, and it was France, bonjour, and I say, my name is Christopher, I can't remember your first name. Or can you remind me of what your first name is? I will, you know, humble myself and ask for their first name, because most of the time I can't remember it either. So just to help out my wife so she doesn't look like the forgetful one, I will easily pretend to be the forgetful one, but God says, who is my equal? Look to the heavens. Look at what all is around us. I created it. I brought it out one by one, and I know every one of their names. Who are we going to compare to? Who are we going to compare God to? There's nothing. We can't even fathom how great he is. You know, I lose track of something in 10 minutes. I forget where I placed my car keys. I try to wrap my mind around this concept. Even this week, I was reading something, and I want you guys, I'm going to try and give you some perspective of how big this universe is and how small we are in comparison. Try to wrap your mind around this. Our body is made up of atoms. So atoms are the building block, basically, of everything in the entire universe. Atoms. So in a human body, the average human body, some a little bit more than others, and I won't mention names, there are about 7 billion atoms. Okay, that's a big number to try and comprehend, but 7 billion atoms in the average human body. And imagine this, every atom in the entire universe, scientists figure is about 1 billion years old. I mean, we can debate, you know, creationism versus evolution and the 6 days, real days, but this is what scientists are saying, and I want you to wrap your mind about it. Follow me with this for a bit. The universe, every atom in the universe is about 1 billion years old. So if you say, I'm a little bit older today, yeah, you're a little bit older. Welcome to the club. So give me a perspective. If we were to take this cup and we're to empty out the oceans around the world, the entire volume of the oceans around the world, and we could empty it from one receptacle into another, imagine how many cups of water there would be. We couldn't even count it. Billions, I think the number is Googleplex or something like that. Google, yes, the search engine Google does not have a monopoly on Google, the number. So it's uncountable. The amount of water that we would have to use, or the amount of cups that we would have to use to empty the oceans around the world combined. Okay, so follow me here. Atoms are the building block. There are approximately more atoms, not approximately, there are more atoms in this cup of water than there are cups of water in the entire ocean. Does that give you a perspective of how many atoms there are in the entire universe? Okay, so now follow me. I'm going to go take this a little bit further. Atoms form to make molecules. Molecules form to make up cells. You're getting a picture here? So when we have cells, they form together and they make up systems in our body. Those systems make up our body as a whole. For example, each of us has a nervous system. Each of us has a limbic system. Are you following? So now we're coming down to from atoms all the way up to systems that make up the human body. I'm going to drive it home a little bit more to show you how complex this universe that we live in is. Every atom in the universe is composed of matter and empty space. Correct. I said empty space. That means there is nothing there. It's empty. And of the composition of an atom, about 99.9% of every atom is composed of empty space. Empty space, 99.9% empty space. So you could try to use that when your wife comments on the extra weight you've seen to put on, say, well, honey, it's only 99% empty space. But our body, of all the atoms in our entire body, the systems, the cells, the molecules, right down to the atoms, 99% of it is just empty space. So if we take up all the empty space, if we could combine and compress and compact that down, empty space in the entire universe, it would be less than this sugar cube. You could get a double-sized sugar cube, but it'd be less than that. It's empty space. So wrap your minds around this. Billions upon billions and trillions of atoms, molecules, cells, and all the empty space that combined would fit into that cube of sugar. So when we look at the universe, 0.01% of all matter is what we see. 0.01%. The rest is just empty space. And God says, look up to the heavens. Who created this? God did. So to whom will we compare? God. You know, I can't remember my Apple ID when I log into the App Store. And God brought all this into existence with the breath of his voice. And he can name and number the starry host in heaven. What amazing God we serve, aren't we, church? Take a look at the next slide. Next slide, Matthew chapter 10. It says, and even the very hairs of your head are all numbered. So God looks down from heaven. He's created all this out of nothing. And he says, I will even count your hairs. You know, I have a few more hairs than Hilaire, but God has counted the hairs on our head. How important are we that he would count our hairs even? God never loses track of who we are. He follows us day in and day out, hour by hour, week by week, minute by minute. Not even a hair of our head falls to the ground without God knowing about it. Have you ever questioned if God has forgotten about you? Maybe you're going through challenges in your life and difficulties, and you say, man, has God forgotten me? Not a chance. God looks down and he knows every hair on your head. He knows every intimate deal about your intimate detail about your life and my life and every one of our lives. You know, as an early Christian, we've been taught, and I think we teach others, that we need just to believe in God, right? Have faith in God. Just believe in Jesus and have faith in him. But do you realize that God believes in us? And he's chosen us to be in his family? This great God who has formed the universe out of 0.01% matter and 99% empty space, all that we see, all that we understand, all that we can touch, God has chosen us to be his children. With all our faults, with all of our pimples, with all of our extra space, some of us more than others, this incomparable God believes in us and has chosen us. You know, I don't know about you, but I can often pray the same thing again and again in my prayers. You know, I'll give you an example. I'm forgetful, so sometimes I will project my forgetfulness on others. So I sent a text off or an email off to Benny yesterday. I said, Benny, can you please remind the singles that they're invited to our place on Thursday night? We're going to have the singles, all the singles in the church over to our house on Thursday night. We're going to prepare a big meal. I think it's going to be a beef bourguignon, a nice French meal with French wine and beef and potatoes. And so I didn't want this to go unanswered. So I sent the message to Benny, and I said, Benny, please send a message to all the singles to invite them over. Remind Benny, because I didn't want him to forget something. Often I will pray to God like I'm sending out a text message. God, I just want to remind you, please don't forget that I was praying for such and such, or so-and-so, or this person, or that person. God knows exactly what we're praying for. He knows our thoughts before we even think it. Do you pray like God is an instant messaging service? Please remember my prayers. And he says, I count every hair on your head, my son or my daughter. How can we compare God to anything? Sometimes we compare ourselves to God. You know, in our lives, we're in control of everything. We try to shape God in our image. But the Bible teaches that we are made in the image of God. We never should confuse the two. They're so completely different. We're going to look at the next slide, and we're going to look at this guy named Job. Job's a guy in the Old Testament, and he had some, if you read the story, he had some friends who weren't doing such a good job as friends. So imagine this guy loses literally everything. His kids die. He loses all his money. He loses all his land. He loses all of his agriculture, all his animals. And his friends show up to give him support. And they didn't give him much support. They dumped on him. So I can imagine if I put myself in Job's position, being dumped on by those who should be my friends, I personally would want to give up. I would have that temptation to want to give up. So I don't know where you are today. I don't know if you want to leave or run. And maybe you didn't envision this situation in your church when you chose to become a Christian. You think to yourself, well, Christianity is not supposed to be like this. The church isn't supposed to be like this. This is too hard. Or maybe you're not even a Christian today and you're looking at your life and you're saying, man, my life's not supposed to be like this. It's not supposed to be this hard, my life. I'm having problems in my marriage. I'm having problems with my kids. And I feel like I'm getting dumped on. Well, let's take a look in Job chapter 38, verse 1 to 6. Can you turn that, Shane? 1 to 3, sorry. The Lord spoke to Job out of the storm, and he said, who is this that obscures my plans with words without knowledge? Brace yourself like a man, and I will question you, and you shall answer me. So in other words, God's saying to Job, dude, you don't even know what you're talking about. I have a question for you. I have a few questions for you. So you got to picture yourself in this situation. So Job, okay, just imagine we're going to go out for battle. Now, let's do it a little bit easier. We're in the 21st century now. We're going to go out and we're going to play a game of football, American football. So you got to dress up and you got to put on shoulder pads, right? You got to put on thigh pads. You got to put on special shoes. You got to put on gloves. You got to put on pads that protect your elbows, protect your arms. You put on your helmet. And I'm sure, like any high school student or football player, you put on all this protection, all this padding. You're feeling a little safe. Now we're going out to fight a battle. We're going to fight our competitor, right? Next slide. Take a picture of this. How are we going to do with that? We go out on the battlefield, we go out on the football field, and we look at our teammates across from us, our adversaries, and I'm thinking I'm a little bit underdressed. Do you not? Take a look at the next slide. Now we're going out to play against God. How are we doing? There's a game my kids play called What Are the Odds? And they ask you what the odds are if you're going to do something like a dare that they give out to you. So what are the odds? We put on all our battle armaments, all of our padding. We get dressed up to the nines to go against God Almighty. What are the odds that we're going to do okay there? The next slide, we're going to read verse 4 to 6. God says to Job, where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched out its measuring line across it? On what were its footing set, or who laid the cornerstone? God says, I formed it all. Where were you? Everything that we have and everything that we need, God says, I got it covered. We don't really need to know the answers to all these questions. He just says, I got it. And I got you. Do we believe that? Do we believe today, church, that God believes in us? Next slide, please. Job chapter 40. It said, the Lord said to Job, will the one who contends with the Almighty correct him? Let him who accuses God answer him. Then Job answered the Lord, I am unworthy. How can I reply to you? I put my hand over my mouth. I spoke once, but I have no answer. Twice, but I will say no more. So at this point, Job realizes, yeah, I better just shut it right now. I better put a zipper right up there and stay quiet. Please, God, just leave me alone. He figured it out. So our goal today, church, is to lift our eyes heavenward. Let's see that this God that we worship, that we chose to worship, whether it was yesterday, last week, last month, last year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago, whatever the date was, that God is incomparable, that we can't compare him to anything, that he's got our back and he believes in us. The Bible teaches that God is omnipotent, that God is omniscient, and God is omnipresent. Omnipotent, if you look in the dictionary, is describing the fact that God is all-powerful, that he has all the power of the universe. When it calls God omniscient, it means he knows everything. He knows everything. And that God is omnipresent means that he is everywhere at the same time. So who are we going to compare that to? Can you understand that? I think it's time for me to just zip it because I can't understand that. I can barely understand my car and the problems. Some of us can't understand how many pimples we're getting on our face or the weight gain. Sometimes we can't understand our finances. You know, I laugh at these. I kind of make a joke out of it, but even some of these problems that we face, they're not small for any of us. We're having challenges in our marriage. We have challenges raising our kids. Some of us have health challenges or family challenges. God says, I got it. And I got you. So today, church, let's lift our eyes heavenward. Let's lift our eyes to this God that we worship and realize that nothing that we can imagine compares to the God that we worship. Amen.